And go. What's up, guys? This is Coach Anthony from Hyper Strength and Conditioning here in San Jose, California. Today what we're going to be going through is how to get yourself out of back pain. In recent time, over the past couple weeks, I've been doing a lot of mobility stuff via social media, and a lot of you have been asking, does that help out my back pain? Because what's going on is a lot of us are working from home, so I wanted to give you guys a protocol for you guys to get out of that stiffness, because we're sitting down all day long, 6, 7, 8 hours a day. Yes, this is, for those of you wondering, this is very relevant to working out, but again, wanted to cater this to most of you just working from home and finding that low back pain. So, right into it. Before we go into our stretch protocol, I wanted to take us through the foam roll protocol. So, before we can stretch a muscle, we want to be able to break down the tightness, get some blood flow, and help the muscle relax, so our stretches can be a little more efficient. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your ankle over your leg like so. If you can't get here because maybe your hip's tied and don't have the mobility for it, anywhere here is perfectly fine, because again, to your lever, you're gonna get the same isolation here that we're trying to get on your glute. So from here, I like to tell everybody, when you foam roll, do not just go back and forth. This actually does nothing. So when you feel something, a sensation, is kind of how to look at it, that screams out at you. How do you know what the sensation feels like? If it's too tight, you'll make a pain face. Your body will stiffen up on it because it's too tight. Those are the spots that you want to sit for anywhere from 20 to 30 seconds. If you're a beginner, if you could take on the tolerance of the pressure being pretty high, you can take it up to a minute at the most. So for now, just call it 20 to 30 seconds. I'm a little tight here at my medial glute, so I would hang out here for 20 to 30 seconds, just like so. From here, we're gonna transition from the glutes, and you just wanna transition all the way to the hips, okay? So from here, I'm good with my glutes. Now you'll be over here, call it the top of your IT band. What you don't want to do is your hip bone. Never really want to roll out your TFL as well. So when you get over, be very delicate. Please take advantage of the fact that your arms and legs are on the floor. Anything too tight, please hop off, okay? Control the pressure. I like to tell my clients, keep that range of pressure in a 6 to 7, 8 range, a 9, 10. Don't necessarily want to be at that intensity. Reason being, you're just putting too much pressure and you're bruising the muscle. So we're doing more damage than we are helping, okay? So from the glutes transitioning over, now we are in our hip flexors. So from here, you might find some funky stuff. You feel a knot. What a knot would feel like is if I'm rolling back and forth. I have a small one right now. A knot would be here if this was your muscle. It may jump like so. What you want to do is go through slowly and really find it, and don't let it jump off to that other side. You want to stay right here. Again, call it 20, 30 seconds. As you go through that window of kind of just being stationary and staying here, you'll naturally break that scar tissue down and the muscle will start to relax. So you're gonna do that on both sides. How long should you stay on each muscle and each part? It's really up to you, because everyone's tightness varies between individuals, and your left side's not gonna be the exact same as the tightness on the right side, just depending what we're doing and how we're sitting. So that's the foam rolling base. Up next, the fun stuff. This position may look familiar to a lot of you. So what I really want you to see, this is an invisible laptop here, desk, whatever it is. But what I really want you to take a snapshot of is your hips. Everybody's hips, when we're working and sitting in a chair, your hips are in an anterior tilt, okay? So what we want to be in is a posterior tilt. So we want to bring those glutes back down, and we don't want to necessarily be here, because now that lower back is always contracted, and hence the back pain. So, what you want to do first, I'm going to make this very fundamental for everybody, is when you lay down, how do you know what posterior and anterior tilting of the hips is? So, for those of you who lift weights and exercise, or when you do sit-ups, maybe we do good sit-ups and then all of a sudden our back starts hurting doing the crunches because we're tired, we're fatigued, your body doesn't want to be in pain, and this is how we compensate. You get this space where your hand could slide through. What we really want to do is have your back maintain that posterior tilt so that we stay on the ground and the back is completely out of it, okay? So from here, take deep breaths. You're gonna inhale and you're only gonna move on the exhale. And here's your anterior tilt. Let's exhale and transition. And what you're gonna feel is that tilt. And you can manipulate it as much as you want. If you can't kind of transition yourself and track that tilt of the pelvis yourself, then sure, go through. And again, this is just to build the awareness. For those of you who can feel the tilt, don't necessarily have to go through this part. You can just fast forward and dive into our next part. So, the first thing we want to stretch out is your hips, okay? So, from here, a lot of people do this stretch wrong. It's a great stretch, but this may look familiar. Everyone leans forward to stretch out the hip flexor just because they feel something. Just because you feel something doesn't mean that you're doing it right. So, when you're here, let's look at what's wrong with it. I'm in that anterior tilt, okay? I feel my hip flexor, but I also feel my low back. What you want to do is bring yourself back. You want to be in a straight line. You want to engage the glute here. So from here, I'm squeezing my glute. I'm also contracting my glute on this side, not necessarily by squeezing it, but putting pressure straight down into the floor through my heel. So from here, we want to reach straight up, 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 up. Again, no, we are not going to be here, because that brings us to that anterior tilt again. Stay in that posterior tilt. Glute is activated. Going straight up. The arm is a supplement of our stretch here. So instead of reaching forward, we can reach slightly over the top of our head. That lengthens it. Again, if you feel a little bit of a stretch here at your quad, it is perfectly fine. Okay? So what you want to do is hold this stretch for 60 seconds. Yes. 60 seconds, rest, and I would say 2 to 3 sets, okay? It is tough, I'm breaking a little bit of a sweat, but again, that change doesn't happen if you only sit and stretch for 20 seconds, 30 seconds. It's no different than going back and forth on the roller. Now that your hips, your psoas, and your hamstrings are free, we can better and more efficiently stretch our glutes. I have options for you guys, but most popular one and my personal favorite if we're stretching the glute is the pigeon stretch. So I'm gonna turn over sideways so you guys can see me. Very similar to the hip flexor stretch, feeling a stretch in your glutes doesn't mean we're stretching appropriately, okay? So notice the two ends of my hips. Currently, one's here, one's here. It's not square as they should be. So you want to close that hip, do either or, bring the hip that's in front back more, pull forward, and now my hips are aligned. From here, now you want to bring yourself forward. If you can, sure, you can find yourself on your elbows. You could even go out further. And again, this stretch may be difficult for a lot of you, okay? If it is difficult, it's because we're pretty tight and limited mobility-wise to get into this position because of the tightness at the hamstring and the hips, which is why that's so important before we get to this point. If you can't get into this stretch, I have a few modifications for you guys. What you want to find is something that gets you above 90 degrees. Why is it important that your box, your step, whatever you're using, is higher than 90? Well, naturally, if I stand tall, I can engage my glute 1 on my standing leg. Number 2, if I push down, I'm already in my glute because of my lever. If I'm parallel, back to the bench, real quick for a second, me pushing down, get a little bit of glute, but I'm also getting a lot of quad, and we're stretching here. So we want to get as much glute as possible. So from here, you want to maintain, before you start this stretch, make sure you have your glutes engaged on the down leg, the non-working leg. From here, you have a couple options. You can reach over, have your hand underneath the pinky side of your pinky toe. Either way, glutes engaged on both ends. And then from here, you're going to bring your chest straight down and fire out your hip for externally rotating here, as you can see. I have some modifications for you guys here. Play around with it. Again, we're all in different, coming from different mobilities and capabilities, so forth. So, play around with it. You can put your foot, there's really no right or wrong. Again, just like the pigeon stretch on the floor, make sure your hips are square. Something that's gonna help you know if your hips are square, squeezing both glutes. So, from here, you could just reach over and just go straight through. If you really can't get into a position to go here, again, because maybe you're too tight at the groin and so forth, just pushing forward, really setting in, and then you can just kind of tug here, and again, pushing for that external rotation of your hip, really focusing on the glutes here. The last one, the missing piece, the final piece, excuse me, is spinal extension. So, if you notice here, before I take you to the wall, now that the hips, the glutes, and the hamstrings are free, and they're actually connected, you want to reintroduce what that movement is to your body, because your body knows this broken position here. So we want to tie everything together, and the best way to do that is an RDL. But again, as we are going through a corrective base, I want to put you guys in an environment to really get through this with the utmost perfect technique. So come on over, go to the wall here. We're gonna finish off the spinal extension here and using the wall as just to keep us in check with our form. So first thing you wanna do is have your hands on the wall. As simple as this is, this can be done wrong very quick. So make sure we are not internally rotated at the shoulders and then we're here, okay? Because naturally, I'm exaggerating, but you can see that the internal rotation of my shoulders, even though my hands are on the wall, is causing a curvature at my upper back, at my T-spine. So make sure your shoulders are back and retracted. Find the wall, and where should your feet be? As far as you can go with your heels staying down with comfort. So from here, I'm sliding, and now my heels are starting to come off. So that's too far. From here, all you're gonna do, how high to put your hands? Just shoulder width, shoulder height. Okay, you wanna go a little lower. It's not gonna break you on this movement. But again, the important part is just to keep the shoulders retracted. From here, you're just gonna push back, push through the wall. Again, this is where the wall comes in handy, because now you don't have to just push your hips back, you actually get to find it with your hands. Again, don't get into your fingertips like so. Bad habit. But you're pushing back, pushing. When you get into this position, notice that the spine remains neutral. I feel my glutes, I feel my hamstrings, and again, that spine staying neutral. And from here, you're just gonna squeeze your glutes from here, from this position, and squeezing through. When people deadlift, for all you squatters and deadlifters, don't use your glutes at the top of the movement, meaning you're going through with everything but your glutes, and then you squeeze your glutes at the last 2 seconds, 2% of the movement, okay? I want you to squeeze your glutes. You should be squeezing your glutes throughout. So from this position, glutes are engaged. I feel the stretch it, and use it. You'll feel it a little bit at the top of your core as well. Light contraction here at the lats as you are pushing through the wall. That's perfectly fine. And here, okay? If you feel a little bit in your calves, perfectly fine. But where I don't mind the calf being engaged, Or I don't mind the calves being engaged. I don't want it to be the main focus or the main limiter while you go through this dynamic. If it is, bring your feet in, and that's it. Oh, last part of this, Coach Ant, how do I help myself not fall into hurting my back again? Don't spend your money on all those expensive ass ergonomic chairs, unless you're bougie. I have one at home, so whatever it is. But use a Swiss ball, okay? Reason being, you are now sitting in, and because the ball gives, you're not necessarily bearing so much weight, number one. Number two, and more importantly, you're more aware of what you're doing in space, because if you're leaning too far, you're gonna feel like you're falling over the ball, yes? So that's it, that's all I got for you guys. Hopefully this helps. Again, this will help all the lifters out there, whether you're lifting, power squatting, functional training, whatever it may be. Freeing up your hips, your glutes, your hamstring, your whole posterior chain and your girdle is always gonna be beneficial to movement, or in this case, just working from home. If you like it, please leave a comment, like it, subscribe, and see you next time.
Oh, give me that.
I was like this, and I was like, oh shit. I was gonna work through it. All the good takes are getting out, dude.
Your foot good? Your foot?
I was doing, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
I was like, it's okay.
It's like, don't curl your toes. Why did I do that?
I was like, fuck, if I lean over, I'm gonna fucking pull my shit. All right.
Hey guys,
from the top?
I'm just gonna stay here, and you guys are good.
Let's just go from the top. We'll take it as it is.